There are two main schools of thought when it comes to talking about ball position during setup. I put this red stake down here on the ground just to give you an extra visual as to where this golf ball is pointing. So the theory that I tend to prefer is the one where the ball in essence remains stationary throughout your swing relative to, let's use our left heel here as our reference point. So if we start with this golf ball, a club head back behind my left heel, this is my 7-iron. If I take my general setup, we would see that here the golf ball is positioned somewhere between the logo on my shirt, let's say, and the buttons of my shirt. So this would be for all my standard shots with the 7-iron. Now, as I change clubs, what's going to happen is the width of my stance is going to get a little bit wider for my longer irons all the way to my woods and drivers, and it's going to get a little narrower for my lower clubs down to my wedges. So what's not really going to change is the ball position. The ball is always going to stay fairly constant for all my standard iron shots as it relates to my left heel. What is going to change is the width of my stance. And what that can do is give a perception that I'm moving the golf ball around. So again, this is my 7-iron. For a standard 7-iron shot, that ball position is probably somewhere between the logo on my shirt and the buttons. If I was to take a hybrid, so I move a little further away from the ball, the club's longer, I'm going to widen my stance a little bit because that's going to help me with my balance. But the ball position really isn't going to change. It's still that club head width from my left heel when I'm using that left heel as a reference point. But what has changed from my 7-iron now to my hybrid is the width of my stance. So the perception would be, now I've moved the ball forward in my stance. That ball now is probably lined up more towards the logo of my shirt. Now if I do the opposite, we go and take a sand wedge, still maintaining that same distance, club head from my left heel is my reference point, but now the width of my stance is considerably narrower. Now the visual, the perception that's going to give is that I've moved that ball back in my stance, maybe even behind the buttons on my shirt. But for me, it's a whole lot easier if I just keep that one point in reference to my left foot, and what changes is the width of my stance. That's just my preference as to where to set that ball up, position that ball during your setup.